Uh, Quite unfortunately, the moderator for today's session is unavoidably absent because he had to attend to his health. So I'm just going to step in to handle that aspect briefly. I think I have somebody who will be joining me to take that up, but um, I'm gonna start the session and somebody will take over towards the end, as we get along. That is, someone is asking, please, is there a recording for yesterday? If you go to our YouTube channel, the videos have been posted. That's Yali Network Nigeria YouTube channel. You can search for it. The videos for day 1 and day 2 are actually already up there. So good luck to you can check that out. So thank you all so much. So without much ado, we're going to get started. Like I said, our facilitators are in the building. So good evening, everyone. You're welcome. My name is Olufumi Olaosun, and I'm the head of Yali Network Nigeria. And we put together this session because we thought that it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to hear firsthand from past fellows. Interestingly, all the moderators of the sessions were actually rather MWF fellows. So it's quite unfortunate that the last person for today is unavoidably absent because we thought it would be good for them to moderate from the angle of their knowledge as fellows. Anyways, but we're going to still get right into it. So thank you all so much for joining. If you have been here from the first day, second day, you would realize that we actually touched on very different areas. And even though that the focus is on the tracks of civic engagement, business, and public management, at least for the past ones, you realize that we actually touched on every aspect of the fellowship, which I'm sure is something that would definitely have been of benefit to you. So we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to just call on introduce one of our first facilitators. Now, what we're going to do at this first time is we're going to have our facilitators introduce themselves before they get right into the conversation. So I'm going to start with Barrister Ifenla. I hope I pronounced your name well. Pardon me if I didn't. Oligbinde. Please just unmute and talk to us. Introduce yourself, your name, what you do, and of course, your track and the year you were a fellow. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi, Olufumi. Thanks for this privilege, and thanks to the Yali Network in Nigeria for this opportunity and invite. My name is Ifenla Olibinde. I'm a lawyer, a writer, a youth and project development person, and I'm a Yali member. I'm a Yali Abuja member, and again, I was recently selected for the MWF, the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So I was part of the 2023 set, and I'm also a McCain Global Institute Fellow. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you with us. I'm sure some of us that are Yali Network members are happy to hear that she's a member of Yali Network Abuja Hub. So it's good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. I'll move to Mr. Yusuf, also a barrister. Interestingly, we have 2 lawyers in the building. Barrister Yusuf Temilola Nuruddin, please just unmute, introduce yourself briefly, and we'll continue.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Yusuf Temilola Nuruddin. Thank you for inviting me. And I also see it as a duty imposed to me by the privilege to have been chosen as the fellow for 2023 courts. I studied at Bridgewater State University on the public management track. So I'm looking forward to an engaging conversation and how I can help other Nigerians get that opportunity of 0.003% of the population that will be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us. And right now I'm going to move to, interestingly, another Yali Network member who was the coordinator of the hub that he's from, but let him introduce himself. Mr. Said, please could you just unmute and introduce yourself? Okay, I think his mic is still disconnected. Said, if you can hear me, please could you introduce yourself?
It was the network that was kind of acting up. It's raining here. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Said Ibrahim. I'm a journalist here in Ondo State. I work for a community newspaper. I was the yearly network coordinator for Ondo State, the erstwhile one. I think I stepped aside in February this year for here. So I'm the founder of Young African Storytellers, and yeah, basically that's just me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And finally, but definitely not the least, we have Jessica Oba. Please introduce yourself. Thank you for joining.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eniton Jessica Oba. I'm a Mandela 2023 Mandela Washington Fellow, as introduced. I am a councillor in Ikorodu local government in Lagos, serving in the capacity of the council leader. And okay, I'm so many things. I think we just leave it at that point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like the way you said you have so many things. So we're definitely going to get to that in the course of the event, because one of the things that people keep asking is like, oh, I do so many things. I'm not quite sure which one to enter, which one to take, and all that. Now, for this session, we actually specifically focusing on the public management track. However, the first things first is for us to even have an idea, okay, this fellowship that we're applying to, like you just mentioned something very striking. You said you are you work with the local the government, at least that's what the public management is about. So could you just, maybe I should throw this question to Barrister Ifenla. Could you give us an overview before we get to talking about, how to write a winning application? Could you give us an overview of what exactly is the public management track specifically? What is it about? Who is it for? And who are those that should apply? Please.
Moderator, is that for me?
Yes, please. Barrister Ifenla, is for you. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I have to quickly do something. Yeah, so basically, public management track, rather leadership in public management, is basically for people in the public sector. Now, it might be a little bit, it might seem like a tough nut to chew in trying to explain what public management is or who are the people in public sector, so to speak. Now, if you work in a political party, if you are an elected officer, irrespective of, what position, it could be elected officer as a councillor, as the chairman of a local government, you ran for office and you won. Or better still, you even ran for office at the level of a political party. If you're a civil servant, you work in a government parastatal, it could be a government, it could be the local government, you work in the local government secretariat of your LG, you work in a municipal, this and every organization around all these sectors I've explained, people like that are, people that the public management track is meant for. And another thing, so it might also be a little bit confusing, especially for people who are, should I say, NGO inclined, so to speak, in as much as it's not really a non-for-profit or a non-governmental organization. And you interface with the public as quote unquote a government person, or you want to, or you see yourself doing that in the nearest future, say next year as a civil servant, as a public servant, or you want to run for office in, let's say, I believe in the next 2 years or thereabouts, local government elections would start all over again. So if you see yourself in that field, or you see yourself operating in that kind of field, public management belongs to you. I have to say that if you want to, because it's possible what you're doing right now, you're not in a public management sector, but you see yourself directly. I have to be intentional in repeating that. Directly, you see yourself doing that in the nearest future. By nearest, I don't mean in the next 5 years. I mean maybe next year. In fact, you're already working towards that or in the next 2 years that the public management sector or track belongs to you?
All right. Thank you so much thank you for that overview. At least now we have a bit of an idea. But I also want to throw the same question to Mr. Sahid, because when you were introducing yourself, you said you're the founder of the Young African Storytellers, and you talked about being a judge. That sounds, if someone were to listen to you, it sounds a bit more like that is in line of civic engagement. Could you also give us an idea of this public management track, at least considering the fact that you got in, who can apply, and of course, just give us that general direction of what it means for those who want to apply for the public management track?
Okay, let me just clarify my bio. As a journalist, I work for the Hope newspaper. It was established by Ondo State government in 1989. So my office is like under the Ministry of Information for Ondo State. So that is why I applied for public track. As at the time I applied, I was the coordinator for Yali Network Ondo State, but I didn't go for civic engagement because aside being a journalist, my future ambition is to be a lecturer. And I am looking at Adekunle Ajasin University where I finished from, which is also a public university. So everything in my mind was towards public management. So that is that. Now, if you're applying for public management and you feel like, oh, I don't have an employment with government yet, do you have any intention in your community? Are you in charge of the youth group, or maybe, okay, like in my own community now, I am the public relation officer for Information Village Youth Forum. If you are somebody like that, you can apply for public management. So what you need to do is while crafting your messages or your responses for the application, what will be in your mind is public good. You are not going to think about non-governmental organization. You're not going to think about business. You're not going to think about any other thing else. All what you are going to say will be around making the society a better place, formulating policy that will help everybody within your community in the state, and in extension, maybe your country or Africa or global. So that is what the public management track, Ifela has broken down some of the things, some of the areas whereby you can work for you to be qualified for this. There are a lot of people that will say, I don't know which area to go to, or maybe I am still a student, or I'm a core member, or whatever it is. If you know that that is where your line of thought is, or your line of career, okay, if you are in the university and maybe you want to be a politician, your dream is to work in a particular organization that is run or managed by government, you can use that to apply. All you need to do is to think about your experiences in the past or what you are doing currently that tilts towards that particular line, and use it to apply. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I can see Mr. Yusuf's hand up. I was actually already going to even call you to bring you in. So I know you want to add some thoughts, but as you're speaking, I also want you to also add what exactly would we now say is the difference between civic engagement and public management tracks. So while you buttress what you're saying, I just wanted you to also address this, just in case there's any confusion between both, because they seem to have blurry lines. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I raised my hand because I just feel like I needed to contribute to this conversation. Leadership track. And I was selected in track. When I saw the mail, I was extremely surprised. Then I was so many questions. Like I felt like when they posted me to the public management track, maybe they've done me a great disservice. He now had to explain to me, like in his words, he said, look at what you are doing. Look at the story that you pitched. Who is being affected by this, and where does your work revolve around? So in my bios, I had served as student union president before. I'm a member of the National Work Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association. I was a chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum. I so to say, do not work in the public space, but use law to affect public policy and affect a change on the greater on the larger scale. So when we looked at all those issues together, I now had to understand within why I was posted the public monitoring track. Going to learn in public monitoring track. What you're going to, because the society, according to the track, is divided into three: people who affect life through doing businesses, people who affect life taking up initiative, and people who contribute to the development of society within the public sphere. So those are the three spaces. Now we can say that those who work with government, those who has things to do with, and so on and so forth, because what we learn majorly is one, public leadership, how to run political parties, how to run government, how to affect public policy, what are the policy making processes, what do you need to consider before you can make policies. We looked at how does business affect policy making. We looked at inclusion. How do people who are, so to say, excluded, how can we make life better for them using public policy? We visited the governor's office, we visited public places, we visited public institutions. What is the connection between health and the public? What effect will education on the public? So these are issues that we reflected on. So there is no blurry line, so to say. It is just for you to really understand how Mr. Diron helped me understood who I am for real. That is just what I would just advise. Understand what you do, creating, see in the spare within which you are working. So if you understand that very well,
Okay, seems we have lost him for a second, or am I the other one not hearing him again?
Yeah, I lost him here too.
All right, that's fine. Okay, that's all right. I'm sure he will join back. Jessica, would you just want to add some thoughts to that? Do you have any thoughts you would like to contribute to that?
I can assure you that.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Yusuf, we lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. So I was concluding saying that I was not just convince yourself. One, in following lines, one, understand this, understand who are your target audience, who are your policies, your work affecting. So there's no confusion, so to say. There is a very big line between public leadership track and the civic leadership track.
All right.
Verifications were made to me too.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Jessica, would you like to add any final thoughts before we move on?
Yes. Well, like I introduced myself, I am a counselor and currently serving in the capacity of the council leader of a local government in Lagos. So that simply means that I work in the government space. I have been doing that for about 6 years accumulatively now. So for me, it's been, I don't know. Okay, while I was introducing myself, I said I can be so many things. I am a CEO of a small company that I have a little experience in business. And just like Optimist, that's Barrister Yusuf. I started my political journey way back since university days. I was able to serve as vice chairman of my state association and the secretary of my state association, and all those things started building me as little as we thought it was. You know, I never thought I'll find myself in this position today as an alumni. I didn't even know what it meant. Like I've never really heard of it as at those times. And when I was applying, those were the little stories, the little here and there that I've been able to do. And I was able to, shut out the business part of me because I needed to get focused in this area. This is the part of me that I really want to work on, that I want to magnify as far as this setting is concerned. And those were the stories I started projecting, how my political career started when I was in undergrad school, and all my little leadership settings the roles I've been able to play in some few associations that I belong, political groups, peer groups, and all that. And so for me, when I was applying, it was basically my journey throughout the 6 years that I've been in the political system. I was opportune to serve as an appointee, and I ran for an office again, and this time around I won about 3 elections straight. So those are my bragging points. These are things I talk about with full intensity. So well, when it comes to the public management track, I would say whatever applicants that is interested in applying for this particular track should be able to, project that part of them, project that what it is we've been doing in that aspect. And I'm grateful that Barrister Infela started with what public management can be, what you're expected to be doing. So you already have an idea of the things that you're supposed to project in your storytelling. So that's about it for me. Like I said, I can be a businesswoman on one side, but I was able to put it aside and to project, somebody said bringing your best foot forward. So bringing my best foot forward, for me, it was all of my engagement in the government body, dealing with people, the public, the voluntary jobs I've done, the campaigns that I've had to do, and, all those things. So I'm going to stop there for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So, at least I think those listening to us have a very clear idea of what this track is about, so that by the time you are crafting your application, you are well guided, because in the application you're going to be asked to select a track, and I think it's in order. So they usually start, they'll say pick your first choice, second choice, and your third choice. So, and I think from everything that we've learned so far is the idea that the track that you should pick is the one that you have more evidence to buttress whatever it is you're saying. So without much ado, we're going to delve right into the nitty-gritty, which I know is why quite a number of people registered on this call. And it might interest you to know that over 600 people registered for this conversation, but you can see the number here. So, and this is the same way when people apply for applications, it's just a few that are chosen. I think yesterday we were about 140, thereabouts. But I want us to get right into the nitty-gritty, and each of our facilitators are going to answer this particular question. Everyone would like to know. I mean, if we're saying less than 1% acceptance rate into Mandela Washington Fellowship, how exactly can I stand out in my application? I mean, all of you speaking, are people who were selected. So, in your own thoughts, in your own way, could you please share with us what are the necessary things to put to craft a winning application? In simple terms, how can I write an application that will be selected, at least for the interview stage? How can I write an application that will stand out among others, and would get me past the application stage to the interview stage, and of course to the final stage? So I'm going to start with Sahid for this, then we'll continue from there. Sahid, please. Said, if you're speaking, you're muted. Is he still on the conversation? Okay.
I'm here, sorry.
All
Oh,
right.
okay, fine. Yeah,
All right.
there is something I tell those that I've spoken to, just 3 steps. What have I done in the past? What are the impacts? Then tell the story. That's all. MWF is not where you want to tell lies. They want to say, I was the this and that. No, it's not about that. You don't need to tell lies, just go straight. If you were the sport director of a department, I was the sport director of a department. Now, what impact do you make? It's not just being a leader. It's about the impact specifically that you have done outside what you are supposed to do. If you say you organize a program, you are to organize a sports program. That is your function. But when you go outside that, are there people, part of your maybe departmental, players, faculty, or university that you help to secure space in the national, let's say in the national team, or outside outside your domain or outside your framework? Is there something you are doing okay, for instance, let me say it from my own angle. I am a journalist for a community newspaper. When I got to that organization, I noticed that students come around to get trained, but nobody was interested in training them. So what I did was to volunteer. So every year, I train nothing less than 40 of them. Whenever they are coming, I am the one directly in charge of them. And every story I told about MWF, I told MWF, is about what I do within that particular space. So these are the students that I train on my own. My job in that office is not to train them. In fact, by the time I started training them, I wasn't even a staff. I was an intern. I was an intern myself, but I took it upon myself to train them. And before MWF, I've trained about 305 of them. So I keep track of what I was doing. Those that need to be mentored, I take them as my mentees. Personally, I was dealing with them, and I'm still doing that. So when you want to craft your application, look at the impact that you have made. For instance, if you're a member of an organization, the success of that organization is not your own focus now, but how did you contribute to that success is your focus. You are the one selling yourself here. That's what I said, what you have done, impact, then telling the story in a way that someone will reason with you that yes, you really did this. Now, why with Yali Network Ondo State, we had a program, education drive. We had it in Akwamu. And I use part of the program to also tell my story, because the issue is, being a coordinator, fine, I'm supposed to organize the program. But there are other aspects of it. There was a time that we were to raise money and nobody was coming in. So I went to the team and I said, okay, I am going to raise 100,000 personally. This is the target I'm setting for myself. And I also created some people as departmental leaders for them to manage others. I put the story, I raised the money, I contributed, and the program was a success. So I put the story as part of my application. When there was a question there, I think question number 3, I put it there. A place whereby you have to demonstrate resilience. Yeah, I put it there. So these are the stories you want to tell, stories of impact. There was a question during the semi-final that what is the most interesting or most successful day that you think of as a person? And I told them that it's not the time that I won best journalist in Ondo State, but the time somebody that I mentored called me that he has been assigned as the director of Millennium Fellowship in his own university. I said, for me, it shows that I don't train followers, I train leaders, people that can also occupy leadership positions in other places. That was my response. So it's about your impact in each of the roles, irrespective of how little. What do you do outside your defined objectives? Are you helping people to secure admission? Are you helping young people to return to school or to stay in school? Is it school bag? Or when people come to your office, outside that, do you go outside your purview to help them to make sure that everything they come to that office to do is successful? Those are the stories you want to tell. So it's about you, it's about the impact you're making in this large ocean that you find yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I mean, I think if you're taking notes from anything they are saying, your notes should be full already. Like we said, we're asking each speaker to really focus, and he has said focus on the impact. So even if, for example, you work in an organization, you're not telling us, okay, this organization reaches 5,000 children. You are telling us how you directly, as an individual, directly contributed to that impact. And this also means that you must be able to quantify your impact. And this is why, sometimes we talk about measurements and evaluation. This is very critical. So you must be able to quantify your impact and put it into very concrete answers, in your application. So moving on, I'm going to go to if Barrister Fella to answer the same question as well. What are your tips as a person, based on your own experience, for crafting a winning application? You can also use your own personal experience. What do you think stood you out, and what can guide others in writing their own application?
Yeah, thank you again, Olufumi. So my first, before I was selected for this year's fellowship, The first time I applied was 2019, 2020 or thereabouts. And at that time, I was managing a restaurant in Abuja. The restaurant initially was working like your average 9 to 5, right? But at some point, after like barely 3 months of me getting there, the restaurant was able to interface from the 9 to 5 to a 24 hours service. I was doing that, during the week. On weekends, because I had an NGO, I still have the NGO, Action Rainbow Movement. And on weekends, I was, working with other NGOs, volunteering. I moved to Abuja in 2018 and I became a Yali Network Abuja member. I ran for office in, I believe, 2019, September 2019. I was Yali Network Abuja's PR, Public Relations Officer. And by the time I applied, sincerely, in my heart of hearts, like in my mind, I really thought I had the biggest application. But then I was not selected. I mean, obviously. Now, the truth of the matter is the MWF application, especially for we Nigerians, very, 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 how many berries now? I think 4. Very competitive, like highly competitive. Like I can't overemphasize on this. And I'm not saying this to make us afraid. I mean, after all, of course, she can say that now because she has been selected. No, I am letting us know the reality. I believe over 10,000 Nigerians applied for the 2022-2023 fellow, for which 7 of us were selected. And guess what? Even out of those 7, some people had been selected like a year before that time. But I think, especially females, but I think because they were pregnant and COVID or some other thing like that, they just moved them forward to access. So that means that maybe roughly just about 55 or maybe just about 50 or 52 were selected from last year's application. That's for you to know the number of Nigerians who are doing amazing things, but then it is very, very competitive. Now, what was the difference between the application I did that time and now? As at that time, the first time when I applied for civic engagement. I mean, again, because I was more into the civic engagement space. I was volunteering. I had worked with several NGOs. I was writing grants for other organizations. I was like an external consultant for the Network of Disabled Women, Cedar Seed Foundation. Like I had my NGO experience as at that time was like between maybe 5 to 6 years. So I was very, very sure. I had done a police project in Abuja where we went to the police headquarters at and it was a big deal. So as far as I was concerned at that time, I thought I had like the biggest, most convincing application. But then fast forward to the next 3 years, by the time I applied again, I was in a political party. I had been in the political party system for like 3 years. And it wasn't much about me being in the political system, but about what I was able to do, about my service. Now, I mean, Nigeria and most African countries are so focused on initiatives, NGOs. Like I'm sure everybody here probably has an NGO, right? Even if you are working in a bank, you have like an initiative you want to do. Because as humans, by default, we are default setting to think of ideas, right? We are very, very proactive when it comes to coming up with ideas. But it wasn't enough as at that first time when I applied because it was, I was still thinking in that framework of the civic engagement setting, so to speak. But by the time I joined the political party, I joined, fortunately, with the experience I was coming with in my civic engagement space, but then I was in a political setting. And I wasn't working like your average Nigerian political party, right? I was coming with the mindset of a project manager, with the mindset of somebody who understands monitoring and evaluation. In fact, I was almost the national chairman. That's my principal. I was almost his PA or his executive assistant, even though I was the party's national director of communications and programs. Everything that had to do with the party's communications, social media, our revamping our website, all those things. The first thing I did as soon as I got my appointment in 2020 was to make sure I had my own personal budget system. Now, what did I mean by budget system? Even though I wasn't vast in accounting or spreadsheets and all those financial what I do, but it was just my own personal framework of holding myself accountable. Everybody at that time, and if you would all remember, we had just left the NSAS movement period. In fact, I was one of the people that were involved in NSAS at that point. It was even because of the NSAS and my role that the appointment came. And it was a Abuja network member that referred me or recommended me to the party when I got to the appointment. And I said, I have heard lots of things about political parties. I know Nigerians do not trust politicians. When I introduce myself that I'm a politician, I don't want people to have that same trust issue when they look at me. I don't want people to say, she's one of them. Or I don't want people to say, oh, imagine, and she's young, oh, and she's even a woman, she's already like them. I wanted that difference to be there. Don't forget, I was coming from an NGO setting where you have an M&E person, you have a project manager, management person, you have, everything is like intact. But Nigeria and political parties, all those kind of things do not work well. So I had my own office. I was like my own boss, but I made sure that I put and subjected myself under a strict accountability system, such that anytime I was done with my project for the month and what I wanted to do for the month, I would send my own personal budget to my boss, the party's national chairman, and let him know this was the money that came into my account. This was what I spent. This was what was remaining. This is what the party is owing me. Because even at some point, I was using my money to do some things. Now, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because these were things that I did myself. But as at the first time when I applied, it was just the normal, oh, we are trying to apply, we are trying to write to NED, National Endowment for Democracy, to get grants. I'm volunteering as a yearly member. All those things as at that time were like imagine you playing with chickens and then you have eagles flying up there. Of course, they'll select the eagles. It was not what I had done, and it was amazing because even at that time, I had people that were trying to apply together, and most of them were selected. In fact, I even helped some of them, but they were selected not because I wasn't doing great, not because I wasn't making impact, so to speak, but for what I wanted, for the civic engagement that I wanted to be selected for, it was not good enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you make your application, make sure, and I love to say this, your best foot is forward. Because if your best foot is not forward, in your own eyes, it might be, oh, this is 100%. But guess what? People who are 500% will get it. And in your mind, you're thinking, oh, you're a champion. But you might look as if you're like a local champion. And those who are regional, national, even international champions are the ones they would go for. Now, another thing is, it's not really about, oh, you have lots of pictures, people, and all. Those things are very, very important, right? In fact, you might be working in a top-notch organization like Connected Development and even Yali Self. You might be a Yali network, you might have been a coordinator. But what you yourself personally, you've done, like personally, not through your organization, they want to know. They want to know what kind of service you put in place. And trust me, guys, service is another thing that is very, 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 very necessary. Another thing that stood out for me was that I remember, I think someone said, maybe someone asked the question that, okay, I think it was Olufumi that said, oh, someone said, oh, I have lots of things, I've done lots of things. It's okay. As I am like this, I can do graphic design. As I am like this, I've done social media handler. Like I said, I have managed a restaurant. I have worked in a political setting. I have like done almost everything. Well, maybe I've not done Yahoo. But at the point when I needed to make application for this particular one, and I was sure, okay, I think this is it, I went as far back as when I was in the university. And every role that I understood that was connected to public management, those were the things I made sure I connected. There will be a place where they will tell you to highlight the professional experience. I made sure I highlighted all my professional experience. I did not mention working in a restaurant because it has almost nothing to do with public management. I didn't mention some other roles like some, let's say, hustling roles, so to speak. But I made sure that all the roles I highlighted were connected to me being in the public space, my accountability being to people, not necessarily to an NGO. That's for people who want to, apply for civic engagement. I made sure that it was about the larger society, the electorate, the people system, people in the community. So those were some of the things I had at the back of my mind. And another thing I was able to do, and for me, I think that was probably it. I was able to make sure that the project I had in mind, it's something that all through the process of my application, I kept on mentioning those things, three of them: women, youth, and persons with disability. And that's because the last 3 years of my life, all the projects I've been doing, especially in politics, were around all those things. In fact, I'm still like an external consultant for organizations for persons with disability, right? I made sure I mentioned all those things. So I wasn't talking off point. I wasn't just talking to show as if, oh, I have met people, I have, worked and volunteered. I just made sure that I kept on mentioning my interest in making sure women had opportunity to run for office. Women had the chance to be in leadership position. Youth faces were up there. And finally, being in a political party, it was a privilege for me, sincerely. It's not because, I'm a workaholic or whatever, but I was also able to make use of that privilege to tell myself, well, I told them that imagine being one of the youngest politicians in the whole of Nigeria. That was what I sold. I don't know if I'm the youngest politician in service, so not, because I was appointed. And being appointed, I am a national working committee member. National, that means that when all the national chairman is there, the national organizing secretary, the national women leader, the national youth leader, they are having meeting, I am one of them. In fact, it was because of me the party started having holding Zoom meetings, because I have to tell them, enough with all this sitting allowances and what have you. We can't keep on holding people and not being accountable. Let people stay in their houses in different states. Let's hold Zoom meetings and I hope on, the party's Zoom platform. But I think 2 weeks ago or thereabout, the national organizing secretary called me to say, oh, Ifela, this, are you back and all? We need to hold a meeting. You understand? So I had to make sure that my creativity came into place. So I owned my application. Like, this is my talk. This is my state. I am the director, I am the actor, I'm not the audience, but I'm the director, I'm the actor, I am the stage manager, I am the costumier, and this was how I was able to make impact. It wasn't about numbers, because really, I can't say that I was, because I can't say that I was like all the electorate. I am not like 200 million Nigerians, and that's the mistake some people make. They want to put in all the numbers. No, I am not. I didn't reach out to 200 million Nigerians. In fact, I didn't even reach out to 100,000 Nigerians. Although I ran for office, I had to step down at some point. I was very, very sincere. But I made it obvious that where I was, I had coconut head. I troubled people in my party, and I let them know that this girl has coconut head. If you disturb her, you disturb me. I was that sincere. Very, very sincere. So that's what I'm going to say. Make sure you're very, very sincere. Whatever it is, not about, I don't want to vote. Please vote what you have done, but make sure your voting it can be tracked. When they try to investigate, because they will investigate, they are sure that, oh, wow. If you say you impacted 100,000 people, please, you had better be true. And if you impacted just 50 people from no person, and they get to hear about your story, in fact, your story might be so convincing that somebody that impacted 100,000 people, because it might not even be you. It might be because of the organization.
We just need to use the right figures, exactly, and show the impacts. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm sure if we left the entire session, everything is really very covered at this point. She has taken her time to break it down and give very specific examples, and I'm sure that's what some of us wanted to hear. And everything she has shared so far would really help you guide your application, because she's giving specific examples using the work that she does. So that would give you a clear idea. So I'm going to call on Yusuf now to say, please, because we are still going to go through the questions one by one. So just in your own words and in just a few minutes, maybe about 2-3 minutes, what exactly would you say for those? Of course, I know a lot has been said already, but just in case there's anything that has not been said already, that you would like to share. So just share with us how to craft a winning application. So Yusuf, please, then we'll go to Jessica before we get into the questions.
Thank you very much. Now, first thing that I want you to understand is that you have to be coherent. You have to be consistent. Even if you have done 10 things, there has to be connecting dots in whatever that you are doing or whatever you have done. That's the very most important. Then the second thing is that, as she said, which I want to buttress the point, you must be truthful as much as you can. In 2017, I made it to the interview stage, but I was not selected. I had a very big impact, but maybe I wasn't saying, maybe that was not my time. But I left all through and I came back again. But the major thing that I discovered that just gave me the niche in the application was that you must have done something crazy, something extraordinary. That is the spirit of this whole process. You must have done something unimaginable. You must have done something incredible. Those are the words that I want you to. And it doesn't mean that you are doing a lot of numbers, as she said. But one thing that, let me give you a practical example of what I do. I'm a lawyer. I do public interest litigation. I represent people free of charge. I have done, as I speak today, I've gotten about 28 people judgment, not just go to court and strike the matter out, from trial to judgment, concluded, free of charge. But there is a particular case that I think which grabbed the attention of whoever my reader was, because that is because when you are telling your story, someone sent what she has prepared to me just day before yesterday, and I read through the night. And she had so many things, but she could not just lay hand on one thing that she has done, which is incredible. So that part of the incredibility is what you need to do. So I told the story of a young boy trafficked from Zamfara State, a 15-year-old boy, to be a cattle rustler in Oyo State. He was arrested. He was detained for 8 years. After 8 years, I met him in court. After 16 adjournments, I took up his matter and I concluded the matter in 3 months. Now, what does it tell you? There is this issue of child trafficking involved in the story. There is the issue of me. If I left Lagos to who knows Isheyin? Isheyin is about 5 or 4 hours drive from Lagos, more than 5 or 4 hours. Within 5 to 4 hours. I traveled to Isheyin every week for the matter, not paid a dime. Now, the byline of my story is that this guy who had spent 8 years in prison unrepresented got a second shot at life. He was reintegrated with his family in Zamfara State, and he's now starting secondary school afresh at the age of probably 20, almost 26 or so. So, because he wanted to be a farmer, he wanted to live a good life. So what am I trying to say is that of all impact that I have done, that one story clicked because it was incredible. So please, if you are filling your application, I had someone who sent me a story of she did that. No, something incredible, something that has changed people's life, something that has, even if it is just one person that is affected. You see, my own story is just one person that I changed the life. I've changed so many people's life, but while crafting my application, it was in direction of just one person. So look at all that you are doing. Maybe some of it you are not paying attention to. Look for the, and I promise you get there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If I think all our three speakers so far have really said the same thing in different ways. And like I said, the idea is really to break it down for you and to give you from different perspectives, just to help you have that holistic picture in your head to guide your applications. And finally, we're going to hear from Jessica. So Jessica, please share your thoughts on how to craft a winning application, but maybe based on your own experience and your thoughts generally, in a few minutes, please, before we go to the essays. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. very much. I'm going to be brief. For me, my selling point was being natural. You know, I met a lot of incredible people during the fellowship, and I hear all the amazing things that they do. They really inspired me. Like what Yusuf just said, it's a wonderful work that I keep thinking about, just like another fellow, his name is Mahfouz, and some other fellows. And it made me doubt, like, how did I get here? You know, I was just doing what I was supposed to do at my job, although I loved it. And while I was writing my story, I tried to be natural as much as possible, and that was my selling point. So it made it easy to put together an essay. Like it just flowed naturally, and you know, all I needed to add to it was being constructive. Yes, I tried to be constructive to make it, worth reading. An applicant sent me his PDF printout. Unfortunately, he had submitted before he sent it to me. He had a fantastic story, but he wasn't really constructive about it. I told him, your story is good, but you just didn't construct it rightly. Just pray that somebody might just think for you and just feel like, okay, this person is worth it. Now, for me, like I said, filling my application, I just wasn't natural about it. I was being truthful. That is another thing. Can you actually prove that all the stories you're talking about, okay, I did this, I did that. Can you prove it? Like, is there an evidence to say that you actually did all these things? An alumni called me one day, we met later, and he said that somebody called me and was asking, do you know any legislator that is called Jessica in your local government? And I was like, wow, who asked? So that means there's somebody somewhere making findings. And if it wasn't so, if their finding didn't really say that you are this person or who you say you are or what you've been doing, so it might just, put all or make all work done equals to zero. For me, I was being natural and authentic, and that's how I was able to write my stories while I was serving in the local government as a supervisor for women affairs and poverty alleviation. There were a lot of young ladies that were coming around me, telling me they want to be where I am. How have I been able to do it? Because it's rare. Even in the local government, as at that time when I was serving, the age difference between me and the next youngest person was 20 years. So I was there with a lot of old people, and they're just like, they're always, what is wrong with you, this girl? Just relax and let us do it, the old way we have been doing it. And COVID era came, I was able to, introduce a lot of things. And the moment Zoom came in, we started having executive meetings on Zoom. It was amazing. The whole experience was wowing to me. And these are things that I documented. These are things I wrote out in my story while I was filling the application. So for me, it might be just that very small thing that you didn't even think is spectacular. Just find a way to broaden it and make it look like you actually solved a problem. You write it in such a way that you identified it as a solution, and you were able to you identified it as a problem, and you're able to profile a solution. So while I was serving as supervisor for women affairs, I was able to train a lot of women in different skills. At some point, we thought that all the skills are saturated in the market. We went as far as training women, especially how to cut nylons into different shapes. Okay, we thought this is not so saturated, and got so good. My boss was very listening, and after I was able to do the training for just a few people of 30, my boss decided to, empower all of them by buying them the machine they need. And it was so amazing. These are all the things that I was able to, put together. I'm sorry, I don't know if most of you would have noticed by now that I'm not the big vocabulary person. So it wasn't about big English or grammar. It just came naturally. And at the end of the day, I was able to re-edit, to reconstruct. And these are things that I know that if anybody should wake me up at so time, I knew that the number of women that were trained in nylon cutting were 30. I knew that the women, all the women that we trained in catering, photography, bag making, shoemaking, all of them at that time was about 305. You know, I had the statistics. It might not necessarily be a large number, but then there were things that, you know, I had proofs of, I had forms, I had pictures of all these things. There were so many events that I was able to put together in bits, unlike Yusuf that was able to just, you know, strike his reader with one particular event. For me, I was able to do all those things that are in line, not just deviating. I didn't say I'm an interior designer in my application, and I am. This is something that I do passionately. You know, if I'm to write a story around that, I can write a book because it will come natural because I love it. And this is not the part I won't project. I wish that, or let me say, I wouldn't say I wish because I love what I'm doing. If I would have done anything on business and I got selected, I still would have had an amazing experience at the Mandela Washington Fellowship. But this is what I wanted to do. So I was projecting more on the humanitarian parts of me, the governance part and all that. Then after being a supervisor, I won an election and I became a council leader. You know, the little experience, the little activities that I've been able to do while I became the council leader till the time I applied for the fellowship also was part of my story. You know, in my interview, there's this particular person, this woman, I think she introduced herself as a chief judge. She was asking me, okay, so what have you done as a legislator around market women? And I told her, okay, to make a bylaw, as we call it in the local government, it takes a process. You know, we have to go through bill preparing, public hearing, and all those things to get it prepared. But then we used an executive order to put those laws in place that every market woman that sells grains, gari, rice should cover their food items with a net cloth. You know, when sand mixes with gari, there's no way you can sieve it out. So that is why it's important. And we created a particular container because we discovered all the IKEA orders in the market. I'm sure a lot of us will be conversant with IKEA. That's the yellow rubber they use to measure grain foods.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, we were able to give them a particular one that everybody must do.
Yes.
And some people came to the council, some people are arresting us for this. We said we sent those task force out. So all these experiences might not be the same for everybody. Well, for people in governance, we might have similar experiences, but it now
All of
depends
this
on
is
how you're
put
able to
together.
magnify what you want to
Absolutely.
be, how you're able to
Absolutely.
project what you want to be. And
Okay.
when I got to, I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. When I got there and, you know, we had to do our elevator speech like 1 million times. And I heard some people saying that they have interest in this, they have interest in that. And I'm like, are you just having an interest? These are things that we've started doing back at home. So in some situations, ideas won some people the scholarship. And in some situations, it's what you have already been doing that would win you the scholarship. Now, coming to Nigeria, I don't know if anybody has mentioned it since this Zoom meeting started, but it was 10,264 applicants for last year, and only 57 were picked. So you can imagine how competitive it is. So this is not just that the people that applied were not more than 16 and we needed to pick 4. So we selected people with ideas. This is beyond ideas now, especially coming from Nigeria, where, you know, the competition is really high. So my advice is, while writing, just be natural, flow, put it down, maybe in voice notes or just write a story, then reconstruct. And that reconstructive part is very, very important. Very, very
Okay.
important.
We're going to get,
So
thank
thank
you so
you
much. We're going
for
to,
now.
thank you so much.
I'll stop
Thank
there.
you. Thank you very much. We're going to definitely get to that because, I mean, listening to all of you speak, one would wonder, I mean, is it not 150 words, 250 words? Where do we want to pack all of this into in answering the question? I mean, you type a little and 150 has finished. So that's why we're going to get straight to the essays part now. And I'm going to be reading out the questions and I'll throw it to different speakers because I think the first thing first is really having a clear understanding of what the question means so that you don't answer on point or off point rather, and then you know how to be concise in your words. I mean, 250 words, 150, even if they gave you 1,500 words, I'm sure it's still very limited. So we're going to take questions from the chat box, but before that, we're just going to take through the questions. That's the essays, because we have the long essays, which really are a major part of your, if not the main thing in the essay. So I'm just going to pick randomly and I'm going to throw it randomly as well. So this question here says, Nelson Mandela said, a fundamental concern for others in our individual and community lives would go a long way in making the world the better place we so passionately dreamt of. Public and community service are essential responsibilities for leaders. What needs do you believe are most evident in your community? How are you working to address these needs? I'm going to throw this question to Barrister Efela to answer for just a few minutes. And I believe this is like two questions in one. So what needs do you believe are most evident in your community? And how are you working to address this need? So if we were to answer this question, it's just 150 words. What advice or suggestions or guidance can you give, or tips rather, can you give to answer this as concisely as possible? Barrister Efela. If you're speaking, you're muted.
Yes, thank you, thank you very much. So one of the key things, I would want to mention that one of the things that also helped me was speaking to mentors, and not necessarily people who had been selected. In fact, there are about 2 Yali Abuja members who really helped me in my application process, and they have never been Mandela Washington Fellows. And that was the first time I learned about the STAR approach. That is this STAR. Some people say you should add L also. So the S is the situation, the C is the task, A is the action, and the R is the result. Some people say you should add L, that's the lessons learned. So basically, I made sure that all the questions they asked me, I first write out STAR, the situation, what is the task, what is the action, what I needed to do, what was the result, that is the result, the impact, the outcome, and then maybe the lessons learned. So for that particular question, I just had to remind myself or ask myself, okay, right now I'm a politician, I'm in a political party, I design projects. I mean, I wasn't working on a local government, so to speak. But fortunately for me, because of my role as a communications person and programs, director for the party, I had about say 36 publicity secretaries who were working with me. I mean, state publicity secretaries. They also had local government publicity secretaries. So basically, everything I needed to draft or everything I designed from my office, so to speak, I had to push them down to those people. But I made sure that every answer I was giving, either for the long essays that had like 200 and something, or for the, straight to the point one, I made sure that I followed that STAR so that I wasn't, I wasn't saying, okay, so in my community, like there are 5,000 people, and then I'm very, very happy with the result. And, like you start from A, it's not a script, it's not Nollywood. I know in Nollywood, you can start from the climax or start from the end and then do flashback. That is allowed in scripts. But you see, in fellowship application processes like this, they like a proper continuation from the beginning to the middle and then the end. And, let it flow like that. Yeah, so that's where I'm going to stop for now.
All right, thank you very much. Now, as we ask these questions to our speakers, just in case you have any thoughts to buttress, please feel free to just indicate and I'll call you. Now, the next question is, which is going to go to Mr. Yusuf. It says the Mandela Washington Fellowship values diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and strives to include and support diverse identities and ideas in all program design and implementation. How do you approach working with people who have identities and ideas that are different from your own. How have you used inclusive leadership to resolve conflict and achieve progress despite differences?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very quickly, let me, I'll just make 2 points. First is that Jessica, she said that if she had applied under second, she would have survived. If I had applied under, because I'm a lawyer and I've had a lot of achievement in legal practice, but I wasn't pitching my law story, my story as a legal practitioner, though it reflected in my application. Secondly, is that on the question just answered by Madam Ifenla, when they say community, it's not your adubo. It's not your adubo. Yali is a community. You understand? The community of lawyers working together. You understand? Community does not mean where you reside. It means your circle of influence, a group of people that you can affect change in their life, a group of place or a settings that you can identify with and you can represent. Take, for instance, as a lawyer, I'm a member of the Nigerian Bar Association Ikeja branch. I was chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum. I moved to the national working member of the national work executive committee of the MBA. I'm just a member of 150 lawyers across Nigeria who manages affairs of about 100,000 lawyers. So the influence that I made in my own communities, how I helped lawyers add access to justice. So don't look at your community, say you do environmental, you do sanitation. No, that's not your adubo, that's not it. Where you can have specific and achievable influence. That's a community. Let's say tech group of people, let's say legislators, let's say people in political parties, let's say journalist organization. It's a community. Now, to the question that I want to answer. Now, the major component of Mandela Washington Fellowship is that you will be leaving your area, where you reside here in Nigeria, to a very big community of people. 700 other Africans, 690 other Africans you'll be meeting. And you are going to the United States of America. And you are going to because all the schools that especially my own school, it's like a school in a community. You'll be relating with members of that, and everybody that you are meeting had a different view and different perspective to doing different things. So how, as you as a person, how can you work with people who over time you don't know? So this is how I answer the question in my own application. You know, as a lawyer, I have about, in my law firm, about 26 lawyers, and I have a lot of people who are under me. Now, there was a time we're doing what we call case theory. Case theory is how we lawyers sit down at our conference room, identify that if we file this, if we sue this, if we do the right letter of application. Now, in this particular case that I pitched in my application, there is a young lawyer, it was called 2021, and he was telling me how to do something. Seriously, our profession respects seniority, but I came back with him and I saw how much I could resolve it. Part of the story that I told was that I attended law school, and in law school, we had about 1,400 people staying in a very small piece of land. Go to Lagos Law School, you'll see it there. So give instances too. When you are answering your application, don't just be theoretical. Give things that you can make reference to. So I made reference to how I stayed in Nigerian law school, how I was able to mix with people from different backgrounds across Nigeria. I also made reference to me attending Yali RLC, where we had 120 other Africans from West Africa. How I lived with them, and we didn't have any problem. I cited instances where we had conflict and I will resolve it. Now, you will be going to America, you will see a different group of people. You see transgender. How do you not discriminate with this group of people? How can you be accommodative. So what I think I did, and which when I studied the Mandela Washington Fellowship course module, is that engagement. When you have issues with people, engage. You understand? Don't just abo and gal. Don't just keep quiet. Don't just give snide remarks. Don't talk people down. Don't, because they are not black and you think that you are white. How do you want to come down from this your being human superiority complex? How can you relate? How can you facilitate harmonious relationship? That is what they want in that particular question. So what is your skill in conflict resolution? In the case you have issues with people, and sincerely yours, this experience has really helped me. I'm so sorry to use this word. I stayed in a room with a gay. And you know me, I'm a straight guy. But because of the course models, because of the what's it called that we have done, the pre-fellowship course that we have done, that's exposed me to how to relate with such people. And you see, this guy has mood swings almost every time. When he feels you are not appreciating him, he just calm down. But do you know one thing? All those, so we found a way to work together. We met with 24 other Africans in my school, and we had a lot of conflict. So these things that we learned, they call it DEIA, diversity, if I could remember, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So how you can bring every other person that doesn't look like you, how can you work with them? And the answer is engagement, constructive engagement. In fact, when we got to Bridgewater, they said, if you have any problem with us, walk up to us. And sincerely yours, these are frank guys. They don't want you to tell them the lie. Tell them the truth. In fact, when Kai was not, I told him, Professor Winkai, you are not doing well. And he said, Yusuf, he apologized, and we had discussion, and we corrected it. So that is what I think is the solution to that question. How much can you? So when you answer the question, cite examples. I cited an example when I traveled out of Nigeria, how I acclimatized with different culture, and so on and so forth. So how much can you bring about peace in where you work when there's conflict? That is what that question is. And that question is very important to the US government because they know that they have queer, they have LGBTQ guys, they have, people that are depressed, people that have emotional, you understand? People that doesn't reason like you, people that you have not even seen before. I saw breed of people that can never imagine in my life. So that is what they want you to answer in that question. How can you work harmoniously with people that has a different view from your own? How would you not put your own how do I put it, bias on them? How do you not impose on them? That is how to answer that question. So cite examples of where you have worked, how you have, and there is nobody. We attended primary school, we attended secondary school, we had attended universities, you've gone to NYSC camp. So is it possible that you don't have an experience of working with people from other culture or people of other sexual orientations other than you? It's not possible. Where I camped in Welo, we were more than 5,000 coppers in that camp. And I stayed in the camp. I could have cited my experience on camp. So just look inward at opportunities that you had, where you have worked, how you've been able to resolve dispute with people. That's thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I think that was really very explanatory. Thank you so much. The next question goes to Mr. Said. It says resilience, especially in the face of sudden change, is a critical quality in effective leaders. Provide an example of how you have demonstrated resilience during challenging times. How has this experience influenced your current work? Mr. Said.
Okay, thank you. I will just take some tidbits from my application. I have it open on another screen here. So I don't want to start defining what resilience is. Just like you want to achieve something, there are stumbling blocks, how did you persist, how did you persevere to achieve your aim, and what are the things you do. Now, the question is saying, cite an example, like you are instructed to do that. So it's not enough for you to say, I'm a I have strong perseverance. So I used to accommodate something. I used to, like resist urge to give up. I don't give up on things easily. No, that's not what we want. Now, so what I did was this. Since I was the coordinator for Yali Ondo State, as at that time, then we were having a education drive, the project I mentioned in my introduction the other time. So I told them that while managing the project in Akpomu, we had issue with fundraising. A lot of people were not sharing that vision of the project with us. So what I did was to set a target for myself, and I announced it on the page. I let the people also know that if we can set targets, we'll be able to meet up with the general target. I mean, the money we were looking for. I also ensured that I divided the team into 5, with each one having a sub leader who I relate with, and they relate with others. So we had to. So that was the whole story I told them. I think it was in 150 words. So how the second part of the question is like, how has this experience now helped you, or how are you now extrapolating that particular experience or using that experience in your current work? I am a journalist, and I let them know that in my current work, there are several assignments that I handle without being paid. Especially, there was one during coronavirus. I was sent by my office to go to the border between Ondo State and Osun State to see how people are crossing over from Osun to Ondo without being paid a dime. I was to write a budget for the trip. I wrote 10,000. It was slashed to 5,000. Later, the chairman slashed it to 3,500, and I wasn't even giving the money at the end of the day. And I didn't get discouraged. This is not the first time. So there are several other projects that I manage like that. Investigation that I had to do overnight, and even travel as far as Ilaje, Eldo, where we had a sea incursion on my own. And I came back with the report because I believe that with resilience, when you have the goal in sight, you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve. So in answering that question, number one, look for a significant example where everything didn't work out. Everything was working against you to achieve that impactful objective. Please look for a project that you know that the impact is not about you. It's not how you want to go to school. That is personal to you. Is there a project that you actually wanted to undertake, and the impact is for others, not really necessarily for you? What are the stumbling blocks that you identify? How did you manage those stumbling blocks? Then how has that experience now helped you in your current work? That is how to break down that particular question. So if you don't take care of all those dimensions of the question, the parts you will have, it may limit the score you will have for that particular essay. Remember, cite an example where there is a plan to impact others or the society positively. Identify the stumbling blocks, everything that has to show that, yes, this thing should not be successful. How did you manage those challenges? You can also mention the impact, that you were able to achieve the impact you set out to achieve at the end of the day. Now, in your current work, that experience has built in you that if you can persevere, you can achieve a lot of things. So in your current work, these are the things you do. These are the things you do, learning from that particular experience. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. This next question goes to Jessica. Said, based on your understanding of your preferred institute track of study, what skills and knowledge do you hope to gain from the fellowship that you would not be able to develop through other opportunities? How will you use those skills and that knowledge to enhance your activities in your community within the next 3 to 5 years? Jessica, please.
Thank you once again. So I mentioned at some point that when I was supervisor, there were lots of young ladies coming around.
Jessica, we lost you there.
Me, so young.
Jessica, if you're speaking, you're muted. Are you still with us?
A call interrupted. I'm using my phone.
Okay, all right. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So I kept those young women close. I'm still hopeful that I'm going to figure out, what to do with them someday, how to help them grow. Because I thought maybe I was a product of grace by myself. They keep coming and I'm like, God, what? But for some reason I kept them close. And I've always used a name called Africa Inspire Her Network as an NGO, but I never registered because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go about it until after we got back. By the time we got back from the fellowship, I'd already figured it out. In fact, right from pre-departure orientation. So for me then was I was able to identify a problem that there's a big lacuna. A lot of young women, especially the educated ones, they don't want to participate in politics. They feel like I have my degree, what am I doing in this space? And you see a lot of young women that are probably not educated. Those are the ones that you find in the grassroots politics. Then it's difficult for women to, then it's now difficult to get women that want to run, that wants to contest. In my own case, when I was contesting for the first time, there were about 7 of us in total, and I was the only female. And it felt like, where are the other females? We should have been like 4 or 5 of us. At the end of the day, it would get to one of us. And I saw that as a problem. So first of all, I was able to identify a problem, and I felt going for the fellowship would, help me to get it right, to be more strategic in that field. The word for me was strategy, learning how to go about it and achieving the right results. Okay, I've been able to run 2 elections. I lost one, I won one, and still, I don't know if it was a coincidence that I won or it was I just felt that I needed that technical know-how, and this was what I put in writing. This is the problem that I want to solve. And I hope that on this fellowship, I'll be able to, gather the knowledge, the technical know-how, the confidence and all that. So that was it for me, to keep it brief. Thank you.
All right, thank you very, very much for that. Really, I think we have, what I've tried to do is bring out all the different questions so that our moderators, our speakers rather, could answer from their own perspective. And I know that you've been able to glean from everything that you have said to really, really put together your own application. Now, I know I saw a question earlier that has not yet been answered, and the person said, good evening. I work as a consultant at a tech agency and an active volunteer for humanitarian projects. I chose leadership in civic engagement. Please, is this track a suitable path for someone in my profession? I don't know if Yusuf or any person else wants to take this.
Okay, let me take it.
All right.
Yeah, I told you that I'm a lawyer. And in my practice, let me just give you a snippet. I consult for, in my office consult for Adova PLC. So we consummate contracts running to 500 million, billions on behalf of the company. So if I had pitched my story in the line of business, you understand, I would have been able to get the application because I saw it in that direction. But I think I chose out of everything that I was, or that I am. I chose which one I think I derive so much joy doing and have so much strength in, and where I have a number of impacts. You understand? Because you see, when you see businesses in the US found, all these businesses were found to solve societal problem. IBM was solved to solve the issue of computer. Microsoft was to solve the issue of people accessing information. And so Google was there. They were created to solve. So you can't just be making money, but when you are making money, you are making social impact. That is when you are called social entrepreneur. So I will advise that, yes, you have different caps. Use which of your cap that you think, or put your best foot forward in all this, because really no one can tell your story better than you. Once you change your track, it should affect, and it must affect your line of reasoning. You know, I said it from the beginning, you must be coherent. Said said something about when he was answering the last question. It also traced it back to the fact that he is a journalist and he wanted to make impact by making sure that that report comes out. So not giving him money to go there to do that investigation. So these are things that I think you need. So once you change your track, it must affect your line of story. So choose which one that you think you are deriving joy doing most, the one that you are doing selflessly most. That's what I would advise.
All right, thank you very much. There was a question, I think I mistakenly said, is there a relationship between the business and public track? I believe the answer to that is one of the things that our speakers have said. You are the one to show how it ties between both, because as much as there is a connection, or rather as much as the tracks are different, for example, if you are in business and you're also in public, for example, like Madam Jessica, who says she has a business, but she's also in the business track, but she had to put the one forward that she has had most evidence for, in a sense. So I think that answers the question. So we're going to be wrapping up now. Dear speakers, people have been asking for you to just drop your social media handles. Maybe they want to reach out to you. But in wrapping up, I would want each of us to just share some final words on how to really, just to wrap up everything that you've said, like your main key takeaways from this session, so that by the time people leave here, they have something in mind. So please, let me start with Zahid. Please, you can go first. Okay, I see a hand up. I'm so sorry. Jay Winner I wish you had dropped your question in the chat box. Okay, he has even dropped it down now. But if you can drop the question in the chat box, that would be fantastic. But please, let's start with Sahid. Just give us your your takeaways and key points as we wrap up this session. Sahid, please.
Okay, thank you. So as we wrap up, let me start from there. I will start from where I started from. I mean, I will have to go back. What have you done prior to this moment? What are the impact, your contribution? What did you do personally? Somebody asked a question. What are the pronouns I should use? For what you have done, use I. I assisted to do this. I contributed this. I mobilized. You understand? Now, when you are mentioning impact, you talk about others. So you can add yourself to the general group. We were able to do this. They were able to achieve this. He was able to find this. She was able to do this. That's how to measure it. So it's not, so the contribution is about you. The impact is about others. There are specific words, word limits given to you. Stick to them. Stick to them. It's not about how you paint the picture. Just mention. There's a question for me that, what is your previous achievement? I just told them that I won Grassroots Reporter of the Year in Ondo State in 2021. I didn't say more than that. So don't waste words on one thing. Break down the questions very well. In fact, sometimes I jot the questions, I break them down. I answer each one in each paragraph. For all my answers, I answer them in paragraphs, not lumped together, so that you will know what each response is addressing. In doing this, be assured, I'm not saying be assured that you'll be selected, but just have hope that, oh, fine, you've done your best and everything. So I wish you guys best of luck.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll move over to Jessica.
Thank you. For me, I would say be natural, be truthful in your storytelling. And first of all, identify the problem and the solution you want to prefer. And don't use GPT. Don't allow artificial intelligence write your story for you. Because if you're writing your story as maybe an entrepreneur, there's somebody else that AI is also writing the story as an entrepreneur. At the end of the day, you'll be submitting the same thing. Then you lost all the natural part, the authenticity of your story. So try and be natural. Let it just flow. That's what I'll tell you. The most important thing in whatsoever it is you're doing, even in the business track, make sure that you identify a problem and what you're doing is solving a major problem. Hold on to that and your story should come easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barista Nsela.
Yes, thank you very much. I think where I want to rest on would be making impact in numbers, or rather describing your impact. Make sure you describe them in numbers. And what do I mean by describing them in numbers? Make sure that your F&F, that your facts and figures are corporate. The years in which you do certain things. Let's say so year in 2017 you were this and that, and then in 2019 you did this and this. You impacted so number of people. I think I mentioned earlier that you need to be sincere, because there is nothing like sincerity of purpose. There's nothing like the person who is reading your application having that sense that, okay, this person, because there has to be a connection, right? If you've not made a case to show or to prove that you have the experience, and then all of a sudden you're now saying that you've impacted 50,000 people, how come? Are you a robot? Right? Because there's even a part where you have to upload your CV. There's a part where you have to put your professional experience. And the way the application is, right, you will just put 2019 to, like, you will just type it. It has to be, you know how you click all these auto calendars, you look for it. And when your application is done, by the time you download your application, you will see the number of years it has been put there approximately by the time you download your application. So whoever is marking it has already seen the approximate number of years of experience you have. So if you claim to have 1 year experience, right, and then the number of impacts you've been able to make, it's not commensurate with the number of years of experience, it might make you look like a liar. So you need to make sure that everything you're saying, you're sincere about it. I mentioned the STAR approach earlier. Make sure you're very, very intentional about it. You might have lots of experience. In fact, you've done several things. You've been doing things since they gave birth to you. It's all well and good. Humans, as humans, we are supposed to, solve problems. We're supposed to look for problems and try to solve them. That's what the Mandela Washington Fellowship is all about. But it's not all problems you've solved that you want to write about. I mentioned putting your best foot forward. Everything you've done, make sure you connect it to that your best foot, right? The person that asked the question about technology, I think I want to just quickly jump on that and I'll be done. I don't know what your other roles have been. I don't know what some other things you've done have been, but from just that sentence, I would advise that you go for civic engagement. However, if what your technology, I think I remember I only heard technology. If whatever it is you're doing regarding technology, if you can show proof or connect it to profit making, if you can connect it to making impact through, maybe profit making, of course, and then making sure that you're able to make certain level of acceleration. You started from, let's say, maybe a startup, and then from ideation level to a startup level, and then from there to another, from ideation to a startup to acceleration, and then now you have like several of everywhere, and it is all for profit. Then by all means, please make sure it is, leadership in business. However, if it is just a social enterprises, I would suggest to go for civic engagement. Lastly, please, it's necessary for you to make sure you read what all these things tracks are all about. You don't want to be pitching because they'll ask you, what track are you pitching for? Is this civic engagement? So it's expected that everything you are saying is about that. My brother Optimist, when he said that, oh, he made those speech and then he was even expecting civic engagement, it's because everything he has put there, the person who is reading it is getting the vibe of public service. I mean, you ran as an SUG person when you were in school, you are like always in the public space. You run for office, you are like a government person, you are like a parastatal person. By default, anybody who is marking it is viewing you as a public management person. So it's necessary for you to understand what those three tracks are. And then when you are writing or answering any question, make sure you understand the questions very, very well. There's a way you are reading a question and it's saying something else in your head, but what you are writing is another thing entirely. The last thing you want is to, confuse the person who is marking. And they are human beings. They believe that the person who is, or they expect that the person who is filling this form is also a human being. You don't want to go too loud, you don't want to go too low, but you just want to be as realistic and as specific as possible. You don't want to be too ambiguous and just going all around. You are everywhere. You are the one that did this one, you are the one that did that one, but then there's really no unity of purpose in your application. You want to make sure there's sincerity of purpose, there's unity of purpose, and in the long run, when the person who is marking your script wants to remember your name, the person remembers this person is a politician, this person has impacted women, youth, persons with disability. For someone like my brother, Sahid, for instance, this person is a journalist. This person makes sure that he is after the underdog, he volunteers, and is always doing tasks. And I mean, this is me, I didn't even see his application, but from what he said, he's a journalist, he volunteers well. He always makes sure that he's there when nobody wants to show interest. That summarizes it. Someone like my sister, Jennifer, for instance, she's a politician. She's someone who is interested in women. She's someone who makes sure that anybody that comes to her, she's interested to make sure that whatever they want, she's solving their problem. You've already summarized it. My brother Optimist, for instance, is an innovator. He ran for office, he's always creating solutions to problems. So what I'm saying in essence is no matter how diverse or how intelligent or how you are, make sure the person who is marking can summarize everything, describe who you are. If the person marking your script cannot describe who you are from the application, it is very, very dangerous. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. All right. And the final word from Mr. Yusuf. I think we're going a little bit past time, but if you just help us, just key takeaways in a minute so that we can wrap up. Thank you.
First thing is that it is meant for leaders. So if you're not a leader, you will not get it. I'm so sorry to sound pessimistic. My name is Optimist. And when I say being a leader, it means that you must have done something exemplary to affect the life of the people. If you are doing business, you must have done your business to affect the life of people. If you are doing civic engagement, you must have affected the life of people. Now, that's first thing. Second thing is there is no way for you in the fellowship if you are not real. Now, understand that your application will first be run through series of machines. They call it a plagiarism test. So there is no way that you have lied or copied someone that you will get it. So then the next thing is that pay serious attention to your CV. You must not be saying hey in your what's it called? In your responses, your essay, your response to the essay, and your CV is saying B. Look at your CV. Let it be a performance CV that has measurable performance indexes. Then, if you are really a leader and you are not lying, you will have been able to tell your story without being under pressure. That's my submission.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been I think, a very fitting way to end this 3-day session. It has been very loaded. You can see that this session, we really allowed our speakers to speak extensively on the work that they do, or rather that they did, that got them into the fellowship. And we hope that by the time we are done here, by the time you apply, we would have many people who would have actually have successful applications, and you can come back to say, oh, I learned this during this 3-day session. So thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to our facilitators. Thank you to Jessica. Thank you to Mr. Yusuf. Thank you to President Fela. Thank you to Sahi. Thank you for sharing of your knowledge. And to everyone who has joined, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I know some of you have asked for the recording. It's actually already on our YouTube channel, Yali Network Nigeria YouTube channel. So feel free to check it out. And this recording will also be uploaded there. Then finally, I saw some of you asking about joining the network. You can send an email to yalinetworknig@gmail.com and we'll respond to you. I think I dropped in the chat box. Just join your name and your state, and we'll attend to you. So please, thank you so much again for joining, and definitely we'll talk soon, and look out for your emails. We just may send the recordings to your email, but it is right now on the YouTube channel. Have a good evening, everyone.
Madam President, please, can I say something before you end the call? Before you end the meeting, like after I finished talking, I remembered. I want to refer back to a couple of the other alumni that said they have applied more than once. Some people applied twice, 3 times, 4 times before they were able to, make it through. Like Optimus applied first in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and he made it eventually at 2023. So applying and not being picked now should not be the end of it. I would want to urge that, we should keep trying till you get it. As a matter of fact, it would even expose one to other types of opportunity. A friend of mine told me he applied for Mandela Washington 3 times and he didn't get it. He didn't make it through. And surprisingly, he got the Chevening scholarship. So it can be like a training ground for some other great, amazing things. And even the timing might not just be right for you now, doesn't mean you didn't put up a very good application. Wonderful people did a lot of amazing write-ups during those times, but they're just getting through now. So please don't say being rejected now at the end of it. So that's just the additional one. Thank you so much. Madam President, over to you.
Thank you so much. I was speaking, I didn't know I was muted. Thank you so much for adding that aspect. Thank you so much. God bless you. So yes, we have come to the end of this session, and we wish you all the very best. And the speakers have dropped their social media handles, so feel free, I'm sure, to reach out to them if you have any questions. And like I said, if you're interested in being a member, you can always send us an email at yalinetworknig@gmail.com, and we'll definitely connect you to the state coordinator in your state. So thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you once again to all our speakers.